Continuing our learning in the halachas of Kashrus. So what we've learned in these last few days is that the essence of knowing whether something is kosher or not is whether it has been supervised. As simple as that. There's no guesswork which is permissible. If it needs hashgacha, and we've given the lists of things, not just meat, not just chicken, even silverware. Like if you or we talked yesterday about if somebody has a knife service, when all those, according to the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah, when those knives or silverware come back from the uman that's sharpening them, you have to do hagola on everything. If you sent a kli cheres away, you got to throw it out. It's a very clear halacha. It has to be supervised by somebody who's muhsak in kashrus and mumcha in kashrus. That's really the essence of not just kashrus, but the whole hashgacha business. Therefore, I mentioned yesterday, I want to re-emphasize this, that if somebody leaves their house and tells a non-Jew working in their house, I'll be back tomorrow, or I'll be back in a few days, or just make sure everything is cleaned up, or cooked, or whatever he or she is doing there, l'chara, everything is in the house becomes treif. Anything that needs a hashgacha comes treif. The poskim say, well, you should lock up your refrigerator and put simanim on your silverware, and make sure your food is double wrapped. So when you learn this kind of thing, because it's so common, people have people in their houses and helpers and foreign workers and cleanup people. One says, well, there must be a heter, but I'm just saying, I looked, there's no heter. The heter is yotzei v'nichnas. That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. And as I pointed out yesterday, yotzei v'nichnas doesn't mean nichnas v'yotzei. Yotzei v'nichnas means the heter is that I'm home. Since I'm home, so and even if I go out once in a while for short times, but basically I'm home, then it's mutter. If you're the other way around, nichnas v'yotzei, every once in a while you go in, you stop in, that doesn't work. It has to be yotzei v'nichnas. But here's the only thing, and that's a clear halacha. I think there's any wiggle room there. I think it's clear in the Shulchan Aruch Ramah, although I know people wiggle this a lot, but as I said yesterday, we have to ask ourselves some questions about keeping kosher. What do we keep kosher? There is a concept, just for 1 minute I'd like to introduce, called, there's a concept called chazaka de Mir'tas. What's chazaka de Mir'tas? A gemara. In Chulin and Gemara Avodah Zarah, Mir'tas means that somebody is afraid. Not just afraid. Afraid is like, oh, I'm gonna, fall off a mountain or something. That's one kind of afraid. Afraid means afraid of getting caught. I'm in a different psychological situation because I could be caught right now doing this terrible thing. We learned a lot about Mir'tas type things when we were learning Hilchas Yichud a couple of months ago. Bala Be'ir, if the husband's in the city, there's a certain, it's not even, the Shulchan Aruch says, it's not even a yichud that I think, oh, maybe the husband's going to come home any second now, let's move quickly here. No, just the very energy of Bala Be'ir creates a Mir'tas. There's a certain energy or lack of it when Bala's not Be'ir. Same thing over here. The umdana, the Mir'tas that the Gemara talks about, is that sometimes somebody's afraid to do something which they're not supposed to do. And that is the pshat, the Rishonim say, in yotzei v'nichnas. So it's yotzei v'nichnas, I'm not there, not supervised. The answer is because the boss can come in any minute, there's a Mir'tas. Important to understand that lumdus. So work with me while we take this one step further. We know yotzei v'nichnas is an umdana. We know that works. Can we make up our own Mir'tas? That's the question. Very, very simple question. Can I make up my own Mir'tas? An example of that would be an old example, meaning going on for maybe hundreds of years, but an old example of that is, let's say I've got the government and the law behind me. So does that help? So for instance, in New York State, I believe, I might be making this up, but in New York State, I believe you're not allowed to write on something kosher, it is not kosher. You're not allowed to write basar kosher unless you have hashgacha. That was like a New York State kashrus law. So maybe there's a Mir'tas that, okay, well, the person's not going to go, the butcher is not going to go bring in treif because he's going to get a ticket. violating the law. That's one kind of mir'tas. Question of the poskim, all the poskim speak about whether this works or it doesn't work, government laws. It's yadua and well quoted that Rav Moshe Feinstein, when it came to Chol of Yisrael, said it does work. Because he said there's such a thing as the Chol of companies, that's seal test milk, regular, and that works, meaning, says Rav Moshe Feinstein, that since it's against the law to use pig's milk, so therefore we can rely on that to a certain extent. If it's hard to get Chol of Yisrael, you could use that. I just want to point out that what Rav Moshe says here is sui generis to the whole problem. Because what Rav Moshe says here is not talking about a law that you have to keep kosher, or if you say you're Chol of Yisrael, you have to be Chol of Yisrael, have a supervisor, rabbi at the farm and everything. What he's saying is something different. It's against the law in the United States of America to sell pig's milk. There is nothing new, even if there was no such thing as kosher, even if there was no such thing as Chol of Yisrael, it has to do with bacteria count. You cannot sell, maybe you'd have to go to some kind of a special licensed health food store or an unhealth food store or something to buy this, even goat's milk. You can't put into a seal test bottle. There's a law in America, almost all the United States as far as I know, that you're not allowed to put anything but cow's milk with a certain level of lack of bacteria. They measure it every few hours. They measure the bacteria level, and if it's something else other than cow's milk, it will fail that test. And so it's not that what Rav Moshe is talking about is not like, oh, they're afraid if it's not Chol of Yisrael, they're going to get in trouble. No, if it's not cow's milk, they're going to get in trouble. Rav Moshe says that you can rely on that. That's a different thing. The Chol of companies have their own hashgacha in place, independent of Yiddishkeit. So it's not, my understanding, it's not really a proof at all that you can make up an umdana of mir'tas and say, okay, well, that's good enough. Another case, very briefly, would be a case of installing cameras around. So that's Rav Moshe Feinstein didn't have so much that option, but today in Kashrus, that's a very common thing. There's cameras at the Schlachthäusers in Brazil and in Uruguay and in Argentina, and Brazil actually not, but there's all kinds of things. Do we even need a mashkiach for Chol of Yisrael? Just put a camera there and watch it from afar. So this is, we talked about this in the summer, if you recall. This is on Shabbos afternoon. This is a very, very big question for big poskim, not for me, not for big poskim. But the question is two things. From a camera, you will know, or somebody who watched this camera, you will know what I said. But does a person have the psychological fear because there's a camera going on? Basically, I don't know, like that you need, social psychologists to say, there's cameras all over Yerushalayim. You have people do all kinds of weird things. There's cameras on the streets. But the question is, does a camera create a mir'tas? I think that's, so therefore, let's say you have help in your house, a foreign worker in your house, and you go out for a couple of days. I'm going on vacation, take care of the house. But there's a camera here. So is that camera going to stop the foreign worker from taking a knife out of your drawer and cutting a bacon sandwich? It's a big chiddush to say that it will. And are we stuck are we limited by the mir'tas of the Gemara, which is a din, a clear din, or can we just kind of make it up as we go along? So tzarich iyun, this has to be seen in the poskim.
I was invited